Welcome back, everyone, to the late night review, and I've been really waiting to get to this one. This movie is still one of my favorite movies of all time. I grew up watching this. I do have nostalgia for it, just like I have with other films, and it's one of my favorites in terms of action and in terms of purpose and cause, in terms of what the character is fighting for, and I'm talking about Death Wish 4 with Charles Bronson, one of the greatest action movie stars of all time, and a good actor too. And I think an actor that's underrated in history. But this is really one of my favorite films. And I just want to say right off the bat, I love Death Wish 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5, I wish they never would have made. If you want to see a movie, instead of watching Death Wish 5, watch one of the Family of Cops movies that Charles Bronson made when he got older. That's better than Death Wish 5 by far. Any of those are better than Death Wish 5. Death Wish 5 should have never been made. It was like a it was almost like a spoof of the Death Wish movies, and it's unfortunate. Death Die Hard 5 should have never been made. And also American Ninja 5 should have never been made. Something about 5. Although Friday the 13th Part 5 was pretty good. But Death Wish 4 is one of my favorites. And one of the reasons I mentioned that I liked 1, 2, 3, and 4 is for this point. I like Death Wish 4 a little bit better than Part 3. Part 3 is good. I really like Death Wish 3. But Part 4 and Death Wish 3, I mean, people might say, it's very far-fetched and everything like that. But actually, in a situation like that, things could develop into riots, and it's not as far-fetched as one might think. And it's a good movie. Some of the stuff is, just like with a lot of action movies, it's a little unrealistic. Some of the stuff is pretty realistic. It goes back and forth. I really like Death Wish 3. It's an action-packed movie with Charles Bronson. He's always had so much charisma. The reason, the reason I like Death Wish 4 a little better than Death Wish 3 is because it's more grounded, a little bit more grounded. And Charles Bronson is he's working on his own here, like he was in 1 and 2. And also, there's something that reminds me of the Mechanic in here. I love The Mechanic. It's one of my favorite Charles Bronson movies ever. There's a hitman aspect in Death Wish 4. And just like with a lot of my reviews, I'm reviewing films that I have nostalgia for that have been out for decades, so they're spoiler reviews. This has been out for a long time. Most people have seen it. If you haven't and you like action, I think you'll like it. I love it. But Charles Bronson is hired in here to whack people, bad people, drug dealers, lowlifes, and that's what he does in here, along with his normal, going after people who hurt him or his family, killed a family member personally. In here, his probably, would-be stepdaughter, because he's dating her mother, and he has come to love this young girl like his daughter. He's in love with the mother. He hasn't married her because he feels like he's not ready. He has been going step by step in this relationship, taking his time with this woman because he still is devastated about his wife and the people that he lost in the previous films, his daughter. And so he's moving on slowly, and he hasn't married her. And their daughter to be, he would be the stepfather if they got married. But he loves this woman, and he has come to love her daughter as as his own daughter. And someone deals drugs to her boyfriend and her, and she overdoses and dies. And it devastated her mother, devastates her, and it devastates Charles Bronson. He tracks down the drug dealer, finds out who he is, and sends him across the river Styx where he belongs. And he takes him out, which you would expect in a Death Wish movie. And later he gets hired by a man who hires him, who's been watching him and who understands what he does and that he's good at it. And he hires him to take out top drug dealers. And that's a fascinating aspect. By some chance you haven't seen this movie, I won't give the ending away. I'm just giving you the plot synopsis. And to me, it's a good movie. It's exciting. It's fun. Like with all action movies, there's some parts in here that aren't realistic. There's some that are. I think it's an entertaining movie, and it's Bronson at his best. I've always loved Charles Bronson. Ever since I was a kid, I grew up watching Death Wish. I saw Hard Times when I was a kid. And of course, The Dirty Dozen, which it's a classic. But I always loved movies where Bronson was kind of a solo act, where he was the main star, But Once Upon a Time in the West was one of the greatest Westerns of all time. And Henry Fonda did such an awesome job in there as the villain. Couldn't ask a better portrayal of a villain in that movie. That was a great movie. In fact, Charles Bronson, I had heard, and I think it's in an interview with him, he was offered the part that Clint Eastwood got. I think he was offered the part before Clint Eastwood was offered the part. Bronson turned it down, the part in A Fistful of Dollars. He turned that down. And then he was also offered to play the ugly in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but that role went to Eli Wallach. Bronson turned that down. I'm kind of glad he turned that one down, but I wish he wouldn't have turned the Fistful of Dollars for his own sake. But thank goodness Clint Eastwood accepted it, because that's one of his iconic roles. Love Clint Eastwood. He did such a perfect job in that movie. But Bronson turned those down, but he accepted. He read the script, I guess, for Once Upon a Time in the West. It was a revenge type story where he went after the killers of his brother. And Henry Fonda played the main villain in there, who killed Bronson's brother, and then Bronson tracks his group, his crew down and takes them out one by one, and then him and Henry Fonda have that confrontation at the end. Bronson said yes to that. He said he liked that, so he said yes. Bronson and Henry Fonda just made that movie so great, and of course the great Sergio Leone did such a great job. And the music with Ennio Morricone, I believe. Ennio Morricone, one of the greats of all time. Great movie. I'm supposed to be talking about Death Wish 4. But Death Wish 4 is, to me, one of the best action movies. And it's a strong sequel. Very strong sequel. I like it a little better than Part 3. I still like 1 and 2 a little bit better than Part 4, but that might change in the future if I ever do a ranking. I think in the future, if I do a ranking of the Bronson Death Wish movies, it'll be interesting to see which one will be number 1. Usually it's 1 and 2, or 2 and 1 are my favorites, and then 4, and then 3, but that could change, because sometimes I like Part 1 the best. Sometimes I like Part 4. If I'm in a certain move, I like that the best. Maybe I'll do a ranking one day, who knows, but 4 is a strong sequel. It's got a good story. Bronson does what you expect him to do. To me, he's always had great charisma. And there's actors in here that you'd probably seen in other films, and they do a good job. And don't remember all their names. I have no script. I'm doing this casually, just talking about movies that I love, movies that I'd seen when I was a kid. Death Wish 4 is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think Bronson's acting in here is good, just like it. He always gives a strong performance. Tough guy, but what you see is what you get. He's tough in the movies. He was tough in real life. He's always been one of my favorites. And Death Wish 4 it's got that hitman type aspect to it. So it kind of goes from Part 3 in another direction to where he's more of a hitman. In Part 3, yes, the cop, the police, they hired him. They didn't pay him really, but not that I remember, but they asked him to go out and take some bad guys out. You have that in here again, but he's more like a hitman. It's more like the mechanic angle, and I really like that. I really like that a lot. Excuse me. I really enjoy that. So not only is he vigilante, also a hitman in here. And I won't give away the ending. It is kind of a, for an action movie, it has one of those endings that might surprise you. It's more of a twist and a little bit better of a story than you might expect from an action film. And I enjoy this movie. I really like it. I strongly recommend Death Wish 4 with Charles Bronson, to me, one of the greatest action stars of all time, and one of the best actors that probably didn't get enough credit for his acting. And this has been the Late Night Review. Please like and subscribe and share this video so other people can see this type of content. Tell your friends about it so they can watch. Pump it up, hype it up. And this has been the Late Night Review. And have a good night, everybody. Take care.